The vast open ocean can be pretty scary. From an albino one-eyed baby shark to giant shrimp, here are 8 crazy things caught in the ocean. Number 8. Human skull. If you Google fisherman and human skull, a disturbing number of different episodes pop up, while this entry only deals with one of them. In 2007, British fisherman Barry Hunter was fishing in the North Sea when something extra tumbled out of his net with other fish, a piece of human skull. Being a law-abiding citizen and a decent human being, he took the remains to the police, who after some investigating learned the bit of skull belonged to one Brian Allison. Normally, this would be good news in that a family would finally get some closure. However, it was bad news for Barry. In life, Brian Allison was his friend. Brian Allison with his brother Robert Temple went missing in 2004 when their vessel sank off the northeast coast near Tinmouth. The boat's wreckage was found, but no trace of either man was ever discovered until 2007 in the net of Allison's friend Barry Hunter. I'm not a mathematician, but the odds of that have to be astronomical. For an extra twist, the news of the identification reached Brian's mother on the day of what would have been Robert's 37th birthday. Number 7. Cyclops albino shark. Fake pictures on the internet are more common than goldfish, and when the picture of an albino shark with one eye hit the web, people immediately began to cry fake. However, truth truly can be stranger than fiction because the photos were actually real. In the Sea of Cortez, a fisherman hauled in a pregnant bull shark. Once ashore, the fisherman filleted the shark and pulled out 9 normal pups and 1 not so normal. The abnormal pup was an albino, meaning it had none of the usual pigment coloration and only one eye set in the center like a cyclops. The fisherman, when later interviewed, stated the cyclops would have been born first, but likely would not have survived. A Mexican scientist, Felipe Gavan, also inspected the shark and acknowledged that it was real. Animals and humans born with that cyclops feature do happen because of a birth defect called holoprosencephaly. Holoprosencephaly affects primarily the brain, but can also affect facial features. The brain does not divide properly into its left and right hemispheres and varies in severity. It can lead to extremely close-set eyes, or in this case, one eye in a rare form called cyclopia. Compared to this condition, being albino was almost normal for this never-born bull shark pup. Number 6. Chimera Lobster. Alan Robinson headed out to sea in Bar Harbor, Maine in July of 2006 hoping for a good catch. What he hauled into his boat that day he thought was a joke. It looked like a half-boiled lobster, literally just half. One side of the crustacean was the normal mottled brown, while the other side was the bright orange of a freshly cooked lobster. What he caught was a rare phenomenon, a chimera. Chimera occur when 2 zygotes with different cells and sometimes from different species combine to form a single creature. There are actually human chimeras that can happen naturally with fraternal twins if one embryo dies early in pregnancy and some of its cells are absorbed by the other twin. The remaining fetus will then have 2 sets of cells, its original set plus the one from its twin. The human versions are far less dramatic looking than what you might expect based on this lobster. Lobsters carry a variety of pigments, usually yellow, red, and blue. They grow symmetrically, with each half of the body developing independently of the other. Even less common than chimera is the uneven distribution of the 3 lobster pigments, which can result in other peculiarities like an all-blue crustacean or a harlequin. Robinson could have eaten his catch and claimed for the rest of his life that he once dined on chimera. Instead, he wanted to share his catch with the rest of the world, so he donated it to Maine's Mount Desert Oceanarium. Number 5. Giant shrimp. In September of 2015, Steve Bergeron, a Florida fisherman, hoisted an enormous crustacean out of the water. Usually when we use the term shrimp, we're referring to something pretty small. Well, this ocean creature never got the memo because it was 18 inches long. That's over a foot. Bergeron sent photos to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, who identified it as a scaly-tailed mantis shrimp. Mantis shrimp come in various kinds. A smasher variety of mantis shrimp once wreaked havoc in an aquarium when it snuck in with a shipment of rocks, killing several of the other aquatic creatures living there before being evicted. Scientists know it likes warm, temperate, tropical zones, which certainly includes Florida. They are carnivorous, strong, and fast. However, it is not known if they have any natural predators or anything about their reproductive habits and embryology. We do know, though, that they are tasty and sometimes served in Asian restaurants. What became of Bergeron's shrimp was not reported, though it's probably safe to assume that he put it back where he found it. Or maybe he just ate it. Number 4. Giant squid. In 2014, 25-year-old Michael Belvin and his friends were in Texas returning from a fishing trip when they spotted something like a trash bag floating in the water. Imagine their surprise, though, when they discovered it was a 10-foot-long, 200-pound squid. The men found it 100 miles off the coast of Matagorda. Marine biologists were very excited by the discovery because these are deep water animals. They only appear in shallower water if in trouble or, as in this case, dead. This would make sense as giant squid can reach lengths of 43 feet. They have 8 arms, 2 feeding tentacles, and eyes the size of a grapefruit. This squid was the 4th ever seen in the Gulf of Mexico. Belvin donated it to some very happy researchers. Number 3. Basket star. One moment, a Singapore fisherman is going about his usual day, and the next, he's fallen into a science fiction movie. While fishing in a seaweed-ridden area off the island of Pulau Ubin, he pulled up what he at first thought was a clump of seaweed, and then it started moving in a disturbing, undulating fashion. He had caught a basket star. Basket stars are a type of echinoderm, which are marine invertebrates whose bodies usually have radial symmetry with 5 or more arms arranged around a central disc. Basket stars have a system of highly branched, fleshy arms that resemble a basket. There are 177 species of basket stars, and some can have very long arms, measuring more than 1 meter wide. The basket star belongs in the same taxonomic class as sea stars, sea urchins, and starfish. Some eat mollusks and small crustaceans by trapping them in the basket formed by their arms, while other species are plankton feeders. A final interesting factoid, they don't have an anus and excrete waste through their mouth. No word on what the fisherman did with his wriggling find, but hopefully he dropped it back into the sea. Number 2. Translucent shrimp. When New Zealander Stuart Fraser spotted the translucent creature floating in the Pacific, he wasn't sure if he wanted to pluck it from the water. As he told UK's Mail Online later, he was sitting 40 miles off the North Island's Kari Kari Peninsula and wasn't sure if he'd pay for his curiosity. In the end, though, he decided to haul it in. Holding it up to the light, Fraser could easily see through the body of the creature. He reported later that it felt firm and scaly. After taking some photos of the dead thing, he tossed it back into the water. Later, he discovered that what he held was a kind of shrimp called a salp, and they really aren't that rare. Salps are found around the world and often in big numbers, scientists say. While Fraser pulled up a lone salp, scientists say they have often been found in chains more than 30 feet long. They also reproduce so rapidly that they can double their population in a day. Obviously, because of their translucence, they are hard to spot, which protects them from predators. Salps feed off plankton and bacteria and can exist in areas of the ocean where little else can live. This makes them an intermediary in the food chain and an important predator. Number 1. Crime-solving shark. Australia is home to many strange things, but it hardly gets stranger than a shark who solved a crime. In 1935, Albert and Charles Hobson baited a few fishing lines and left them off the coast of Sydney overnight. When they returned in the morning, they found a plethora of fish and a small shark on their lines. As they hauled them in, they came upon a startling discovery. A gigantic 14-foot tiger shark was entangled in their line. The two men pulled the shark out and took it to the nearby Coogee Aquarium. After a week in captivity, the shark, who probably hadn't done anything interesting up to that point other than look terrifying, vomited up a human arm with a length of rope tied to the wrist in front of a crowd of terrified onlookers. An autopsy determined the arm had been removed from its body with a knife. The story did not end there. On the arm was a rare tattoo that allowed police to identify the owner as Jim Smith, a former boxer whose post-boxing employment including petty crimes and insurance scams. He was also a police informant and picked the wrong men to blackmail. Those wrong men sent an assassin who killed and chopped up poor Jim Smith and kept the arm as proof of the killing for his employers. Once the arm served its purpose, it was dropped into the bay anchored to something heavy by a length of rope. A passing tiger shark, being an opportunistic eater, took upon itself to have a light snack before becoming entangled. While the shark did not personally solve the crime, if it hadn't eaten the arm, then no one would have known what became of former boxer Jim Smith. Thanks for watching. If you know of any other crazy catches, let me know in the comments below. See you next time. Bye!